what a gorgeous day. I'm really looking forward to this episode because I really enjoy the Juliet Code, and you know how I love a spy film.
So do I, particularly if it's got a woman as a spy.
Yes, it makes you think of Mata Hari and Australia's Nancy Wake, the little mouse. It must have taken tremendous courage, and I just think there's so many stories of female spies from all the wars actually that have yet to be told.
Well, I think that Christine Wells was inspired by a true life story. I mean, I think that, she found this story about this young woman who was trained by special ops and then parachuted down into occupied France behind enemy lines. I mean, can you imagine?
It would have taken courage just to jump out of a plane.
That's right.
Let alone just staying one step ahead of the Nazis, always terrified that you'd be caught. I'd be a dreadful spy.
Luckily, we don't have to be spies. That's why we get to read about them.
All right, yes, I'd much rather write about them.
I wonder how she stumbled on the story.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll find out. Shall we go?
Yeah, she'll tell us all about it today.
Yes. Bonsoir. This evening, our guest author is Christine Wells, and she is talking about her latest novel, The Juliet Code. Now, this novel is set in France during World War II, and it's a dashing spy romance thriller. And so to celebrate the occasion, I am wearing a trench coat and a military grade beret. So Kate and I were scratching our heads about what we could possibly cook for this meal. Given it was set during wartime France, everybody was on rations, there was no food. It makes it hard. And so we thought, well, what about a quiche?
Partly because there was a scene in the novel where Juliet has a picnic with her parents and her mother is French. And also because you can make a quiche out of just about anything. So, for example, just a few little herbs from the garden, 6 eggs from your own chickens, 1 tomato would be sufficient, and even if you just had 1 mushroom, you can just cut up whatever you have and put it in and then tip the eggs on the top. Basically, it's a very quick, very easy meal. So, having said that, shall we get started? And remember, the secret to a good quiche, or in fact any quiche, is 6 eggs.
Oh, it's so good to see you. Welcome to Sydney. Welcome to Sydney.
Oh, thank you so much, Kate. It's so lovely to be here. How are you, Sarah?
Well, thanks, and it's such a treat to have you as well.
Oh, it's great to be here. Isn't it a beautiful spot?
It is gorgeous, isn't it? It's called 40 Baskets Beach, and apparently it's named that because in the olden days when the settlers first came, someone caught 40 baskets of fish off this very beach. I have to tell you that my sons have often come down here and they have never caught anything but old boots. But it is a beautiful looking spot, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
I thought it might have been a picnic basket beach. Very appropriate for today.
Wouldn't that be lovely if we could just come down and pick a picnic basket off the beach?
40 baskets. Oh, Christine, I have to tell you that I enjoyed the book so much.
Thank you.
A woman that goes off to be a spy and, in the resistance in France during World War II. It was written for me. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the book for our viewers.
Sure. It starts in 1947 after the war, when Juliet is very scarred by her experiences as a spy in France, and she's approached by an SAS officer who's hunting Nazi war criminals, and he also wants to find his sister who was imprisoned with Juliet during the war. So Juliet has to come out of her shell and go to France and find his sister.
So, tell me about your journey to becoming a writer. Was it a long, tedious one or a joyful, happy one?
I think somewhere in between might be best describing it. I started writing seriously when I was about 26 or so, and I was still a lawyer. And it was a bit of a mistake because it just took over my life, I think.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was such a passion, and I was doing it every waking moment. And when I wasn't at work, I never did it at work, except maybe in lunchtime or something.
Never did it at work. Never.
But I had about a 5-year apprenticeship before I sold my first novel, and that was it won a contest in America, and then as a result of that, one of the editors offered to buy it, and I got an agent, and she sort of played them off against each other, and I ended up with a deal with Penguin in New York, and that was historical romance. And I wrote a few books for them. I wrote a few books for St. Martin's Press over there. And then I decided I wanted to do, I was really leaning more towards the female journey a lot, and so my romances were starting to go that way, and I wanted to do something bigger and more with more historical depth, I suppose. So then I did The Wife's Tale, which was my first book with Penguin in Australia, and since then I've done 2 more, The Traitor's Girl and The Juliet Code. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your inspirations for this book.
Well, my inspirations were that I'd read a lot about the spies who had gone to World War II, and I wanted to look at a realistic depiction of somebody who'd returned from the war and gone through those experiences and how they change afterwards.
Because it's such a fascinating period of history, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, women were asked to step up to roles that they'd never undertaken before, and they'd always been told they couldn't. So it was a real period of growth for women.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which sort of, when you read it, I mean, it takes you sort of all sort of through France, and there's always the lurking threat of torture, being captured and being tortured in the background there. Yeah, I just wonder, do you think any of us could do that? I mean, would we be a spy? Because I mean, that's what really being a spy is all about, isn't it? Putting yourself in so much danger.
Yeah.
That the risk of being caught is almost unthinkable.
I know, I live it through my books. I don't know if I had the courage myself.
You like to think that you would, but then also you know that under those circumstances, you'd want to keep your family safe, and you'd want to not get hurt, and it's almost impossible to imagine it. When we've always lived in peace.
I'd much prefer to be a sniper.
Sniper?
They're dangerous.
Yeah. And I think too there was a lot of wit involved. They used their wits, so they got out of difficult situations by talking their way out of it rather than shooting their way out of it, which was very, very stressful.
Does everyone know the story about the White Mouse, the Australian?
Nancy Wade.
That's right, the Australian that turned out to be an awesome spy in France. Who knew?
Well, actually, one of the incidents in the book's based on one of her little escapades where she broke into the files at the SOE and because she wanted to read what they said about her. So
I love that. That was the opening scene,
Yeah,
and
that
it
was
really. Well, one of the things I really loved about the Juliet Code is the fact that your heroine just seems like an ordinary young woman, just really wanting to do her bit.
Yes.
She lost her brother at war. Her mother was French, and so she felt a strong sense of kinship with people living under the German occupation in France, and she just really wanted to have a chance to help, and yet she was just an ordinary girl.
Well, she did have a particular skill, which was the wireless operation, but she was absolutely terrible at everything else. So everybody said, no, she can't go, she's just going to never survive, and she does. I mean,
and I suppose the whole sort of issue is when you're running a spy operation is that you don't want to employ somebody who's so weak if they did get captured. One, they didn't take their suicide pill,
Right.
And two, they were then tortured, and at the first sort of bit of pain, they spilled all the information about operations.
yes, well, the trick was you were supposed to hold out for 48 hours.
Right.
And then you could say, that would give everybody time to scatter in your particular circuit. But imagine 48 hours is a long time when you're under that kind of torture.
Is that the same today? Like, do you know, has spying changed over the years?
I don't actually think we get the full picture of what spying is, because MI5 say we don't have license to kill. You have to operate within the law of whatever country you're in. Come on. There must be black ops.
Yeah,
and all that sort of
that's
thing.
right.
So, yeah, the official story you don't get the real story. But.
What is the fascination with spy thrillers? I've noticed that your last book, Traitor's Girl, was also a spy thriller.
Yeah, I'm a bit obsessed, I have to say, because I love it when people use ingenuity and brains to get out of dangerous situations, and spies have always appealed to me because of that. So when I found out about all the women who had been behind enemy lines for the Special Operations Executive during World War II, I just thought that was a perfect setting for exploring that kind of heroism.
So, the fascination with women spies, I love James Bond.
Yeah.
Big fan. Why women spies? Like, I love women spies as well, I've got to say, but obviously it's a calling for you.
I think I love powerful women. I love women coming into their own, and this idea that women can do anything, and they just have to be challenged to do it. And coming from a very traditional background, how do you then step into a role like this? I think there's such an arc of growth there for the character. It just fascinates me.
What's it like to have so many fans in different countries, and you go and visit them very often?
Oh, every chance I get. Tax deduction? No. The Romance Writers of America have a huge convention every year, and they do a mass signing of hundreds of authors, and they get people queuing around blocks to come in and get their books signed. So It's just, there's nothing like it here. It's an amazing experience, and you get all these people coming up to you, and they've read your books and they've got them all there for you to sign, so it's great fun.
So why do you think it is we don't have that sort of equivalent thing in Australia? Is it the sport thing in Australia, or why, or just the numbers?
It's the population thing.
Yeah,
I think so. I think there's a lot of very avid readers, but we just don't really have that culture of coming and going to a book signing.
I've been to heaps of book signings here in Australia where you have queues of people. In fact,
we both went to G.R.R. Martin, didn't we?
yeah, that's right.
Yes.
But my very first book signing, when I had my very first book published and no one had ever heard of me, I was put next to Terry Pratchett. And he had a queue that went out the hall, down 15 flights of stairs and down the street. So it depends on the author.
That would have been a bit daunting, wouldn't it?
Oh, just a little.
I was next to William McInnes once at a writers' festival, and he had a long queue, and I just said to him, I'm just going to pretend they're all here for me.
Very good attitude. So Christine, Can you tell us a little bit about the inspirations for this novel? I know that it was inspired by true events.
Yes, that's right. When I was researching The Trader's Girl, I came across so many fascinating women, and one was Nur Inayat Khan, which I hope I pronounced properly, who worked for the Special Operations Executive, and she was actually, her father was a Sufi priest or spiritual, and so she was a very gentle, lovely lady. You would have loved her. She wrote children's fairy tales, and she was a child psychologist, and yet she was a very good wireless operator. So she was actually scared of gunfire. She had all sorts of trouble with her training, but they were so desperate for wireless operators that they sent her anyway. And she did end up getting caught by the Gestapo, but she did a lot of good work before then. And she was actually designated a dangerous prisoner because she fought so hard against the Gestapo when they did catch her.
So, what an amazing story.
Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it, that how people so defy expectations. Like, it's amazing how many times people make judgments about people that are completely false.
In this book, I've got two women one who was trying her best but couldn't manage to do everything. One who was a perfect recruit, and the different journeys they have show that perhaps the perfect recruit isn't the perfect spy. So it was an interesting journey to take.
So on that note, I'd just like to really thank you for coming. It's just, and reading about spies and espionage, it's so exciting. Yeah.
Thank you both for having me.
It's such a pleasure. Thank you for writing your beautiful books.
That's a pleasure too.
Thank you.
All right, cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, everybody. Woohoo!
So, welcome to Word of Mouth TV Soundbite, where we share our favourite books that we have read recently. For me, it's called The Ruin by Dervla McTiernan. It's an absolutely fantastic contemporary crime novel set in Ireland, and it's about an Irish cop who is haunted by a case from his past and finds that it casts its shadow even into everyday life.
Okay, and the best book that I've read in the last 12 months, albeit it was published long before then, is The Dressmaker by Rosalie Ham, and it was fantastic. Basically, it's set in the fictional town of Dungatar, a town whose name is indicative of the unimaginative, small-minded and mean-minded bullies that live there. And so when the protagonist comes to town, she's been to Paris and learnt how to make clothes, and she's this glorious ray of sunshine who loves colour and beauty. But even when someone as gorgeous as that comes to town, these people still can't accept the blessing that's been bestowed upon them. It's a great book.
I'm really looking forward to Anthea Hodgson's The Cowgirl because I loved her last book, The Drifter. This is in the same series, and it's about, The Drifter was about a girl who is a party girl broken by something in her past who comes to a small wheat belt town in Western Australia to live with her great aunt Ida, and she finds herself in that town, has a lovely romance, and you laugh, you cry. It's just a gorgeous book, and I expect that The Cowgirl will be just as good.
The cookbook that I want to recommend to everyone this month is French Kitchen, Classic Recipes for Home Cooks by Serge Dansereau. I've chosen this one this month because we were cooking a French feast, and I just love this book. Not only does it have great recipes in it, but it's actually absolutely visually gorgeous. And so it's a little bit of a feast for the eyes as well as a feast for the stomach.
And today I am going to recommend all of the books of my favourite chef ever, and that is Jamie Oliver. I love his food. When my son was little, we used to sit there together and watch Jamie Oliver on TV. This book is The Return of the Naked Chef, and The Naked Chef is just as good. It was his really early stuff where he's explaining everything in his inimitable way so that he can make even the worst or inexperienced of cooks
produce something magnificent and very delicious.
And I'm recommending Manu's French Kitchen. He makes normal French cooking just so easy. It reminds me of a little bistro that used to be down the road from me where I lived, and it's just simple French cooking, nothing better.
And that's it for this week. Thanks for joining us. Bye.
Bye!
Thank you for joining us.
And if you don't want to miss any of our shows, just press the subscribe button at the bottom of our YouTube channel.
And if you want to know more about our fantastic giveaways,
Or about any of our delicious recipes,
or book news, views and reviews,
then just go to our website at wordofmouthtv.com.au.
see you next time.